to welcome Miss Jamaica Kincaid.
Here she is again, her naturally black hair thick and coarse as ropes that were usually found in the hands of stevedores, cut off so short that she might be mistaken for a stevedore himself. The color of her hair was the color of new rope in the hands of a stevedore, blonde. Her eyebrows removed with a razor, and in their place a line drawn in the colors, blue if she felt like it, green if she felt like it, gold if she felt like that then. Her lips painted red, a red meant to reflect the color of the fires that burnt in one of the many lower circles of hell. Her cheeks daubed with an orange goo that was the same color, orange, as the daylily, Hemerocallis fulva, a flower native to China, but that now grows wild, unencumbered, without inhibition, in the northeastern part of the United States, an area in which the Sweets live now, though it was unknown to Mrs. Sweet then, and revolting to Mr. Sweet's consciousness then, and a nightmare for him now. But then, when Mrs. Sweet was young, and so ignorant, she, this lovely person now, then thought that to grow old was a mistake the person who had grown old had made. She thought that all the people who had grown old had walked through a door, the wrong door, and if only they had chosen the correct door, that thinning and embarrassing folding up of the flesh would not have taken place. They would have continued to be as freshly made as the day they'd turned 21 or somewhere around then now, and not be a creaky something complaining about their failing organs, just the way you do about a car that goes on and up and down the roads for a long time, and the engine needs a new something, needs many new somethings, and the muffler is doomed, but can be replaced too, and, well, was a person not like that, something useful then and now not so, but a person was not like a car aged naturally, but a person walked through the wrong door, grow old or not. I've come to see that is a function of the fact that I loathe writing. What? You mean to say you did that? He said to her as he stood by the kitchen with his half-empty cup of coffee resting on the counter. I just hate writing that, even though I love to read it if someone else writes it. I'm simply incapable of writing a short paragraph. I also seem to be incapable of writing a book over 200 pages long. So there's the long sentence and the short book. Until I was 19, I had not read a serious book of literature written in the 20th century. So I didn't know anything. I didn't know any American literature at all, maybe a poem or two, but I didn't know Americans wrote other than Ebony magazine or Time. I think I first came across Time magazine at 9 years of age. I didn't know anything about contemporary writing. I thought that writing stopped with Rudyard Kipling, and that serious writing, that everything else was sort of Enid Blyton, and there was a magazine called Stag magazine that with drawings of naked women, and that's how I knew about certain kinds of things. But I read Lady Chatterley's Lover by D.H. Lawrence, and I wondered why it was banned, because there was a better book called Lady Chatterley's Daughter by Penguin. That was my exposure to modern writing until I was 19 years of age. And then when I went to live with a family where I was a nanny, I discovered literature, the rest of the world. So my dislike of, or not dislike, my misunderstanding of literature as it developed that it was possible to, you know, to write like, oh, I don't know. I didn't know Virginia Woolf or Gertrude Stein, two people that people think are influences. I didn't know anything of that, or Fitzgerald, or any great writer. I didn't know anything about it at all. So my first impulse when I started to write was, it seemed to me that the three things that were the biggest influence on me have been the biggest influence on me as a writer, and the three things that are imprinted on me as a reader, as a child, were these three books: the King James Version of the Bible, Paradise Lost, and an edition of the concise Oxford English Dictionary. And if you look at my writing, you will see that those three books, my desire, inescapable, I can't help it, to repeat a word and to hope that it conveys a different meaning, the same word, placed even in the same sentence, repeating the same sentence, that's the dictionary. The way I repeat an event, that's the Bible. The way I begin a sentence, that's the Bible. The sentence begins with a conjunction, or the sentence that never really ends, but the story remains the same even though the time changes. I would say that's pretty much, again, the King James Version of the Bible, which is what I read. And the epic quality must be from Milton. Oh, no. Gosh. First of all, I would only read my own work because you asked me to. It interests me incredibly when I'm writing, and I'll be obsessed with it for years, and then I'll take a break from it. But I'm not at all interested in my own work. I would be more interested in the garden, or I'm more interested in my children than I would be in my own. I never read my own works. I have them in a dark corner somewhere. They're the last thing in the world you would find. But what would be a happy writer? I mean, it's the whole question of happiness is. I would bet money that there isn't another country in the world where its inhabitants mention the word happiness. I bet you the French don't. I mean, in everyday, you know, happiness. It's just when we say there are no happy writers, what exactly would it mean? I was happy the day my book, this book was published and it came to me. I thought, what a beautiful thing. And I was happy for some of that day, and then other things intervened, and then the happiness receded. You see what I mean? We speak of happiness as if it's something, you know, you step into happiness and then there you are, you're happy. But it's really, there's life, and then every once in a while something intervenes that sets off in you this state we call happiness, and then life resumes. And then where is happiness? But you can't be constantly in this happiness. Almost every time I speak to someone, a group of people, the question somewhere in there is a question of and happiness. And it's only because we're Americans. We are just obsessed with this thing. And of course, I think there is no group of people more unhappy and discontented than Americans themselves, who have so much to be happy about. For instance, when I was just coming up here, I saw once again another spectacular scene in California, and it reminded me of this thing, I think, that to live in California, which is just the most beautiful place and just should make you so happy all the time. But to live in California, one of the things you have to do is just forget that it's the most beautiful place in the world and just drive a highway through it and get in your car and go somewhere and cut someone off. And actually cutting someone off, that's happiness.